I work in Web3 and it was totally by accident. I have a PhD in holistic medicine. So I'm really good at healing people from mental illness, anxiety, depression, addiction, things like that. And then during COVID, I felt like I was getting a mental illness. I don't know if anyone else felt like that. But I decided to take a sabbatical and go and work on farms. I became a farmer for about a year. There's an organization called Worldwide Organization of Organic Farms. I lived on 8 farms. I built earth ships in Puerto Rico and New Mexico. And I learned all about permaculture and herbalism, making my own medicine, and how to live sustainably on the planet, which was kind of an unexpected departure for me, but also really nourishing and healing during a time of crisis and global pandemic. And some of the projects that I explored in Dominican Republic and Guatemala were built on tokenomics, and I had absolutely no idea what tokenomics was. And I came to discover that a lot of developing countries are really embracing cryptocurrency as an alternative to their centralized banking systems. And I just fell in love with the people, and I fell in love with the ideas of creating innovation for social impact. Because really that's always been the kind of heart center of the work that I do, is how do we create a better quality of life for everybody, everywhere. And so that's how I accidentally fell into Web3. I came back to the US not long ago, about 9 months ago, got recruited at Blockster, which they were just writing stories like the one I just told you. Stories about crypto and NFTs and the metaverse. And I worked for them for a few months. And like so many of the organizations that are launching, startup organizations that are launching in Web3, there wasn't a good infrastructure, right? There wasn't a good roadmap. There wasn't good financial management. And they laid off the whole team a few months later. And since then I've been doing consulting and taking on different projects and seeing a lot of the same challenges in Web3. There's something about people who work in Web3, we're kind of anarchists at heart. We're kind of like, we're gonna do government better, we're gonna do finance better, we're gonna do everything better. And we don't like to follow rules, we like to make our own rules, we like to make our own universes where we can live in the universe as a unicorn. Like, that's what we wanna create, because that's what's really fun for us. But we've thrown out the baby with the bathwater in a lot of these situations, and we haven't really adopted a lot of good practices when it comes to operations and finance and all the things that really create a stable, sustainable, scalable startup organization. And so that's something that I care about.
How do we embrace Web3? Because you've pivoted a few times. And it's, you know, from what you just mentioned, you're truly a serial entrepreneur. You change with the times. And we're trying to understand Web3 in the metaverse. And every time I ask someone about it, they give me a different answer. So tell us a little bit, what kind of embraced you, what kind of made you fall in love with that concept, Web3, the metaverse? And where do you think it's going?
It's going to completely transform everything. I'm 100% certain it's going to transform all industries and all humans on the planet, which is a pretty bold statement, but I really genuinely believe that that's what's going to happen. The reason that I'm in love with it is because when you look at the scope of challenges that we're facing, you look at the scope of challenges humans are facing and the planet is facing, it's really easy to fall into despair, and it's really easy to feel despondent, and it's really easy to feel overwhelmed. And I had all of those feelings during the pandemic, which is why I was just like, I'm gonna put my hands in the dirt, I'm gonna grow some food, I'm gonna build a house, like, I'm just gonna do the basics. What blockchain does is it rebuilds the world on a different premise. It rebuilds the world on the premise that we can all trust each other, and that we can exchange things among each other without these centralized organizations that for a long time have exploited us and have controlled us and have separated us from each other. Decentralization means an equality, an equity, a transparency. It means a different kind of community. It's a different kind of consciousness more than it is just a metaverse or an NFT. And then when you put on top of that the most creative people in the world are embracing these technologies to build really cool shit. Like, really cool shit.
Can we say shit here?
Like, I don't know if you've seen NFT art, have you been in an AI immersive environment? Have you put on an Oculus? I mean, if you have even a 15-second, 30-second experience of like putting on one of these devices and like skiing down a mountain, or I don't know, shopping, like these experiences are transformative, and they have the potential to influence education and commerce and business, like on every level, in every way. It's just very exciting, and for me, there's an inherent hopefulness and optimism in it, because the people that are working in it are excited about finding solutions, and they're excited about doing things differently than we've done them before, and they're my people. I love them.
What I have to ask is, because when I was reading your background, you mentioned it earlier, you come from a mindfulness background. Is there a connection, you think, between metaverse, NFTs, Web3, and my own mindfulness? Because I think there's maybe some kind of correlation.
So I did a lot of mushrooms when I was on the farms, and I did some peyote and some LSD and some ayahuasca. And what I think is a direct correlation is psychedelics and Web3. So mindfulness, yes, like living in the present moment, 100%. But what I think more so is when you're tripping, who likes to trip? When you're tripping, right? Your mind is going beyond the boundaries of where it's gone before. It's coming up with crazy stuff. And that's what we're doing in Web3. It's breaking boundaries. It's shifting your paradigm. It's thinking about things differently. It's that weird, unexplainable artistic experience that you have in your mind. Like, people are just building this into the future, and I think there's a conference coming up in November called Wonderland. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's like the global conference of psychedelics, and it's going to be great. Anyway, I'm speaking at that conference because I wrote a piece about what I think are the correlations between the renaissance of psychedelics for mental health, for healing, and what's happening in Web3 is this breaking down these boundaries of shifting things in a way that we've been prohibited from doing for a very long time.
I do a shameless plug. I drive a Volvo, and Volvo just introduced AI for their cars. All their cars moving forward is going to have AI, where it's continuous learning. And it's changing the way we normally think. Right? And if you look at Web3 and Metaverse, it's giving us that opportunity to live in that alternate space, to do different things. What are some of the pitfalls that you see may happen now? Because we're not all ready. I've never taken mushrooms, so I'm not ready for that. So we're not all ready for that alternate. What are some of the pitfalls? You mentioned it, the company you're in, that they weren't ready for it either.
I think that humans are imperfect, and I think we will bring our imperfections into Web3. I think we'll bring our greed, and I think we'll bring our pride, and I think we'll bring all these things, and that will inhibit some of the more aspirational developments happening in the space. And I think we're going to make mistakes. We're already making mistakes. We're already misspending money, and there's already a lot of scams in the space. There's a lot of vulnerabilities and volatility, and we're going to see all of those things, but I think no more so than we see them we're humans. Like, we're messy. Like, we pretend like we're not messy, but we're just messy, and we're gonna be messy in Web3. But I definitely feel like the people in the industry have an intent for something better. It's just it's just the ethos that I experience, which I wasn't in tech before. I had worked at some startups. Like, there was a startup that was doing a wellness app where you could do wellness app things, and it was just very much like we can create an efficiency and monetize things that aren't monetized, and it just felt very purposeless for me. Like, I know a lot of those tools and apps and things, they create an efficiency and they create solutions sometimes, but it wasn't as aspirational. And I am forever an idealist. I am forever believing that we can do things better in a way that serves more people. So that's what, I mean, humans are gonna make mistakes and they're gonna make a mess in Web3.
You're always going to have those few that try to take advantage of the system. And then you have the others that are the ones that are always looking to do better. And Web3 and the metaverse allows people to do better with the technology.
Yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity, right? Like, I don't know if you guys have heard that the Vatican put art in the metaverse. Like, imagine that you have access to Wi-Fi in a developing country. Never in your lifetime are you going to the Vatican. That's never going to happen. But through some community center and some Wi-Fi and some devices that were donated by a tech company, you can have an immersive experience of seeing the Vatican art in the metaverse. Like, that's an incredible opportunity. Imagine you're in medical school and you are not yet ready to cut open a human to do a surgery. You can have an augmented reality experience of performing a surgery in an artificial environment that just prepares you a little bit more for the actual experience. I mean, there's like so many. The other thing about this is you guys get to decide this. There isn't like a group of executives in an office somewhere deciding Web3. You guys get to decide this. And even if you're not working in Web3, you're gonna find that it's intersecting with your life more and more. And you're gonna be like, hey, you know what? Like, in my spare time, I like actually really like making music or art. And I actually kind of would like to see what it's like to make an NFT. You're gonna find yourself just gravitating into the space. You're gonna get to define what your art is doing. You're gonna get to define what this next generation of the internet is gonna look like. Even if you don't know it right now, the fact that I'm here is crazy, that I'm like doing this chat with you when this wasn't even in my orbit, you know, a year or two ago. So you're gonna see the way that you guys become co-creators of this future without ever expecting it to happen.
So what are your long-term visions for metaverse, NFTs? I know I see it a lot more now, and I've never seen it before, and a lot more integrations. I spoke with someone the other day, they're trying to develop an NFT Miami. They've already done NFT New York, and so those kind of things are happening. So the sky's the limit, basically.
Right now I'm taking it one client at a time. I'll tell you about some of the clients I've had in the last few months. One client that I had was doing an NFT launch, and do you guys know who Frida Kahlo is? So they burned a Frida Kahlo painting to immortalize it on the blockchain. And the premise of the launch was that the man who owned the painting, he has a daughter that has an illness, and he was trying to raise money for these charities that support this illness. And when he went to Sotheby's to sell the paintings, they told him they'd keep half the money. He was like, no, I want all the money to go to charities, and I want it in perpetuity, that these charities are always getting royalties. And so he decided to put it on the blockchain, and we had a massive event where he burned the painting. Like, that's weird. It's weird and it's crazy, and it's his personal way of transforming something that he thinks is going to benefit a lot more people than it hanging in his house or than him selling it at an auction. The client I have now, BlocksRoute, they do high frequency trading with like these algorithms that help you extract more value on your blockchain trades than if you don't use their service. Like, every single service, every client, everything that I get invited to do is so different. And so I'm gonna continue to kind of take it one client at a time and learn as much as I can and invest my time and energy in the projects that I think are the most interesting or innovative or powerful.
any projects that you looked at and you thought, this guy must be crazy, this girl must be crazy?
I mean, have you been to a crypto conference in Miami? I think that there's a lot of flash in Miami, and what I've been doing on my journey is looking for the people in the community that are building good things and that have integrity and that are working in the industry in a way that aligns with my values. And that's like a full-time job sometimes. You go to these happy hours. There's a Miami Tech happy hour here every other week, right? You go to these happy hours and you really have to kind of find your people, but once you find your people, it's just so satisfying. Miami has a lot of potential to really be a global leader. The only other city that I hear about frequently as Miami is Dubai. I mean, they're our only real competitor in terms of innovation. We are really leading innovation, but we have to be more than just flash and no cash. Like, we really have to kind of, walk the walk and really develop things that are going to have really significant impact. We're already a global name when it comes to Web3. We have so much potential.
You see, your Miami mayor is pushing it, but Miami is known to flash. This is not our first flash conversation about Miami. But there's a lot of innovation here. A lot of things are happening in Miami. And just the couple of years that I've been involved, I see the growth that's happening. And you, for example, where you were able to pivot and now your specialty now is Web3, and how you've been able to become an expert in that field, just shows the ability that Miami has for exposure.
Go Miami. I think this is a really amazing place to be. I was talking to someone at the bar and saying, like, you're in the perfect place. You want to be in VC, you want to be in tech, you want to be in blockchain, like any of these things, startups, you're in an amazing place to do all of those things.
Great. Now, I don't know if my time took her. Am I good? She's falling asleep on me.
It's a rainy night. I feel like it's a chill. It's a chill.
So, Miami, you said Flash is a shortcoming. What are some other shortcomings in Miami? So what do we need to do?
Okay, don't get me started. Like you mentioned in the bio, Joan, that I'm passionate about organizations that support women. And so I'm a Tuttle Tribe member. Web3 Equity is an organization that supports women learning about Web3. So is Mission Impact. Just shout out a number. Just humor me and shout out a number. What percentage of startup funding in South Florida do you think goes to women? Just shout out any number from 0 to 100. What percentage? What is it? 14? 5? 10? 3? 30? Is that all the guesses? 0.6%. This is less than 1% of funding goes to females in South Florida. This is unacceptable, okay? It's completely unacceptable. You could make an excuse if it was less than half. What excuse are you gonna make for less than 1%? We have a lot of work to do to actually create equity. And I'm passionate about women, but you could be passionate about any aspect of inclusion or diversity. There's work that needs to be done to really level the playing field. And I think that's really some of the work that we really have to focus on going forward.
And that's a real stat, because ironically, if you look at the statistics, you dig down deeper, they get 0.6% of the money, but they're more successful with the money they get. So it's ironic. They'll be around again next year and 2 years, while the male that got more money is ran through his funds. So passionate about women, we feel that we're at Startup Mind. We are definitely trying to change that paradigm every day as well through these events. So what we'd like to do now is leave it a few minutes open for Q&A because Zach, thank you, Zach. Zach, that's my signal for Zach to go to the kitchen. Leave it open for Q&A. Anyone have any questions or comments? Please, this is the time. Go ahead. No questions? That good?
Everyone's very relaxed.
We're very relaxed, right? Got some drinks, some food.
I'm sorry. If you were explaining Web3 to somebody who doesn't understand IT, how would you describe what is Web3?
The question is, what is Web3 for someone who doesn't understand it? My definition of Web3 is the technology that falls under the umbrella of blockchain and emerging technologies. Blockchain, what I would put under that would be cryptocurrencies and NFTs and maybe financial technologies. And then under emerging technologies, I would put metaverse, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and virtual reality. So it's the kind of collection of future technologies that are impacting finance and business and commerce. But for every person that you ask, you're probably going to get a different definition. Some people are more hyper-focused on certain areas. Mine is a very holistic umbrella that includes all of those things. Go ahead.
You mentioned that Web3 is an opportunity to bring more equity and inclusion in a place where big players have dominated before. But you also said that we are imperfect actors building these things. How can Web3 do the things that you were saying, facilitate inclusion and equity, without going against the ethos of Web3 that is freedom and decentralization?
For me, those are harmonious. So he's asking about creating equity, and then how does that align with the ethos of Web3 being decentralized, right? Everybody having the same access. So all of you have some kind of smartphone device on your person right now. And all of you have access to Wi-Fi right now, even if it's freehold Wi-Fi. But there's maybe 10% of the room that has a crypto wallet on their phone, and maybe even less than that that has an NFT in your crypto wallet. And why is that? That's because maybe no one showed you how to do it. Maybe you didn't have access to information, or you weren't exposed to those assets so that you could acquire them. There may be other obstacles impeding you from participating in that. Maybe you're just afraid of money, and you don't like to invest in anything, and you need that kind of hand-holding to get over that hurdle. And the reason I do all these talks, and I do them constantly, is because I want as many people as possible to hear this and to at least have the information that they need to participate. Because if everybody doesn't have the same access to the information so that they can at least participate, we're never even going to get close to equity. We're never going to get close to it. We can be pointing at it from a distance, but without some kind of onboarding where they have someone, giving them those resources in a way that's digestible, like in their language. There could be people in this room right now that don't speak English. This whole talk is wasted on them. And this happens at community centers all the time. They'll open up community centers in a neighborhood that's all Haitian or that's all Puerto Rican, and the people don't even speak the language at the community center. So we have to be mindful that everyone has access, or it's not going to be decentralized. It's only going to be the people who are privileged enough to have the onboarding and to have the information. Does that make sense? Does it answer your question? Kind of. We can talk more after.
And that's kind of how the ecosystem in Miami got built, because when we first started 5-6 years ago, there was only 1 or 2 players that were doing things like this. And then as information started to share and more communities started to develop, we had a co-working space every 2 weeks popping up. So entrepreneurs had more access to resources. There were VCs popping up more because people exited companies and now they became VCs. And so everyone now is a VC. So that's how the generic growth began, is because we informed everyone here are the resources. Because when we started, statistics stated that entrepreneurs failed because they didn't have resources. They didn't have access to resources. They didn't know who to speak to. They didn't know how to build a team. So those are the kind of things that we kind of put into our monthly events, and then everyone started to do the same thing. So, I mean, it's good that we've seen this growth, and that's because we share the information. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, time's up. That's my question.
I'm gonna hang out. If you want to talk to
Can
me,
I ask you to hang
I
out?
like to make new friends.
We're going to take
so
a
talk-
mid-break to set up for the pitches. So the bar, some food come out. I think Zach brought some food out. Some more is coming out. So then we'll start the pitches in like 5 or 10 minutes. Thanks again. Thank you, Gabby, for coming out. Thanks, guys.